the lesson that we've been building up to over the last few weeks, and we're going to now look at creating a bingo game. Now, the bingo game is quite nice. I'm going to take you through a lot of different steps, and I'm going to expect you to do a lot of the code. And if you can't remember how to do something, please look back at the previous lessons, because everything we've done in the previous lessons builds up to this. So if you are a little bit stuck, go back on Moodle and have a quick look. So before we start, how does bingo actually work? Well, the way bingo works is you'll normally have a caller, and they'll normally have a machine like this called a bingo machine, and essentially you'll have balls. Balls are numbered 1 to 90, and essentially what will happen is these balls will drop into this little chamber, and the chamber will spin around, and at random one ball will be called. Okay, in other words, it'll be selected, the bingo caller will call it out, and they'll say, you know, number 2, number 5, number 6, whatever. As a little extension that I'm going to show you how to do later, when you have some of these bingo calls, there are a few nicknames given to these bingo balls. So, for example, the caller may say Kelly's Eye, number 1, One Little Duck, number 2, Man Alive, number 5. So they will go through and they will call out a number. Now we can do this using either a list or a dictionary, but this will be something that we would look at maybe later on, or you could even do it as a series of if statements if you really wanted to, but I wouldn't do an if statement for this. So how does bingo actually work then after it's been called? Well, if you are playing a game of bingo, you will normally have a bingo card. Now this is a full bingo card with numbers 1 all the way down to 90 on it. And people can either play one card or one section of a card, or they can play the full 6. The maximum you can play in one card is 6, but obviously you could have, if you were really quick, you could have as many of these cards as you want. Now, in terms of what happens, when the numbers are called, the person will mark off the numbers using either a pen or a bingo blobber, and they will mark them off as they get called. If they have a line, like this, as an example, then they would potentially win. And what would happen is they'd either shout something like line, house, bingo, whatever the key word is they want to get the caller's name, and then the caller would check that the numbers have been actually issued properly. So as an example, if I called house for this, somebody would pick my card up and then read number 9, yes, number 28, yes, 32, yes, 51, yes, 83, yes, and all of a sudden I'd be the winner. Now in the event that these numbers maybe have been crossed off incorrectly, the game then will just resume until the next person then shouts out either line or house. Now, once you've done that, that's known as a line. When something is completely covered, that's normally called a full house. But for our little game of bingo, to stop it, we're going to be probably using a while loop. And to stop it, we're going to use a keyword. Now, you could use something like house, you could use line, whatever you want. Now, there are a few requirements of this program. So these are the requirements. So the first part is to generate a range of numbers 1 to 90, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a second part now, which is very easy. We're going to then randomly pick a number, and we're going to store the randomly chosen number in a list, and don't forget now this loop around every time. And then when a person calls either line, house, bingo, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want the buzzword to be, whenever somebody calls that, then you need to basically stop the program, and you can do one of two things. You can either ask the user to enter the numbers they have had, or show a full list of numbers. Now, let me give you one massive bit of advice. This one is far easier than this one. Okay, so this one's far easier than this one, but it can be done, no problem at all. And then basically, once that's happened, then we can continue our game of bingo. Okay, so I'm going to switch now to another program, and we're going to go through a few tutorials with you so that you've got everything that you need to really start building your program. Right, so the first thing we need to look at is creating a list of numbers. Now there's a few ways we can do this. So if I make an array or a list called number list, and let's make that blank so it's got nothing in it. What we could potentially do is we could do a for loop. and say for I in range 91. In fact, I'll show you what happens when we just do 90, right? For I in range 90, we could append, so we could say number list dot append I, and then if we print number list out, we'll see then what it does. So let me run this, and that's come up there. Here we go. So what this has done is it's printed all the numbers 0 all the way up to 89. So that's not ideal because in bingo there is no number 0 and we're missing the number 90. So what we potentially need to do is we need to say 1, 91. And let's run that again. And you can see there now we've got numbers starting at 1 and ending at 90, which is absolutely fantastic. Now there is another way we can do this. So the other way you can do this is by using actually one line of code. So if I get rid of this for loop and I get rid of this here, what I can do is I can use the list command. So I can say list and then range 191, and that will do exactly the same. So when we run this, it'll generate a list of numbers. So this is the previous program with the for loop. This is the one that we've used with the list. Okay, so these are exactly the same ways of doing it. It's just the outcome. Sorry, the different ways to do it, but the outcome is exactly the same. Now, the other thing that I've asked you to do, and if we go back to our little tool list here, is we've got to generate a random list of numbers, which I've shown you how to do. Pick a number at random. So I'm going to look at seeing how we go about that. Now you could tell it, so we could say from random import rand int, and you could tell it to generate a random number. So you could say something like chosen number equals number rand int 1 to 91, print chosen number. Let's just put a hashtag on the end here to comment that out. So what does this do? Bam, it's chosen 81 that time. Let's choose another one, 50 that time. So we could do that, but the issue we have is that potentially we could choose the same number twice. So with this line of code, it could choose the number 50, and then when you run it again, it could choose the number 50 again. So that isn't going to work for this one. So we need to think of another way. Now, the other option you've got is to pop the numbers out of this list. So if we pop the number out, so if we did this, number list.pop, let's see what happens when we run this. So that's popped the number 90 out. Now I'm going to run this again. Watch what's going to happen. Prints the number 90 out again. The reason being, the pop command always will pop the last number. So what we could potentially do is in this here, we could write a little script at the top here to choose a random number based on the length of this list. Or what I would do to be quicker, I would change this to shuffle. And what I would do is I would shuffle the list. So I would say something along the lines of shuffle number list, and then watch this. So 78 now, where's that one? Let's run it again. 53. 1. And don't forget now, as we pop, each time we pop, we're taking it out of the list, so it can't be used again. All right. So if you think of it now, we're removing the numbers. We then need to store that in a remove list, and we should be halfway there. Let's just have a look at our list here. So store the numbers in a number list. Great, lovely. We can do that. Stop when a person calls line or house. Well, you can do a while loop. So while call equals true, and then you can do a break to get out of it, maybe.
you can work that one out yourself. And then this part here, either to ask the user to enter numbers or show a full list of numbers. Well, if I'm going to be truthfully honest, this here is the easiest one. So what you would do in this example is you would basically loop around this a few times. So let's just do, I just want to do a for loop to show you 10 numbers, right? For I in range 10. I'm going to do another called numbers. So we've got a blank list here called called numbers. And what we're going to do is we're going to have called numbers dot append and then chosen number. And then what we're going to do is we're going to print out the call numbers. So let's have a look at what happens here. So we've got 42, 32, 84, 44, 13, 37, and so forth. So that's an example now of that just running 10 times and calling a range of numbers. Right? Now, what do we do? How do we check to see if the number is in that list? Well, this is what you would do. You'd use an if statement. So let's say, for example, I make a list of numbers and then we use the called. What I can do is I can say we loop this around 10 times for I in range 10. So what we're going to do is we're going to say check, because it's the check number, int input, please enter the numbers called. And then what we could say is if check is equal to, or if check in called numbers, then print the number is there, else print the number is not there. Okay, so this is a lovely little bit of code here. I love using the in command because this is a really nice way to see, you're comparing to see if this variable is inside this list. So let's run this. Okay, so we got 42, 21, 60, 77, 39. So please enter a number called. So let's say, for example, we put the number 1 in, right? The number 1 is not there. Great. Because we know it's not there because it's not there. It's not in this list. Let's put 39 in because we can see 39 is there. And you can see there, that's saying the number is there. Let's do 24. Let's do 73. Let's do 74. Great. So you can see this is working quite well. And this is now how you would do that check to ask the user to enter numbers. Now, I've used for loops to do this, right? You would probably be better off using a while loop. I say probably, we'd definitely be better off using a while loop. So how would we go around doing that? Well, this is what I would potentially do. What we're going to do is I'm going to get rid of these here and I'm going to say while true. So we got while true at the top. And then we're basically going to say draw equals input, press any key to draw a ball. Or we could say S to stop. Okay, so what I'm showing you now is how to actually get this loop to loop or get it to stop. Now what we need to do is a very, very simple if statement. So we'll say if draw and I'm going to say is not equal, right? And that's how I do not equal, right? I'm going to say if draw is not equal to S, then what we want to do is shuffle number list. Now, oh my gosh. Now then, there's a reason why I've put it inside this while loop, right? If we leave this shuffle outside of this loop, it's only going to shuffle it once. Ideally, I want to really randomize it a lot more. We could just leave it there once, but I want it to shuffle every single time the program's run. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say draw numbers equals, and then we need to pop the numbers out of a number list. So we need to say something along the lines of dot append, or in fact, draw numbers equals number list dot pop. And then what we do is we have a called numbers equals, dot append, and then we're going to have something along the lines of drawn numbers. Now then, let's look at what this code is doing. I'm just going to put a line in because sometimes it's easier to read. So if it's not equal to S, so if we enter any key, basically it's going to shuffle a number list, it's going to pop one number out, save it then as number list, and then we're going to add that to the called number list. Right? And this is going to continue around. And then if I just do an else, I could do an elif. Oh no, we'll do an else. Print numbers called. And then what we're going to do, I'm just going to print this one out so you can just see the called numbers. So let's run this code. So we start off, press any key to draw a ball. 61, 15, 3, 67, 24, 30. Great. Now then, I'm going to press S. And can you see what it's done? It's basically put all of these numbers in here. And because obviously I'm still looping around, I haven't put a break in my code, it's just looping around again. Alright, so that's how we would do it. Now, again, if you wanted to sort that in order, you know how to do sorts. We've done list sorts in the previous lesson. If you can't remember, you can have a look online to see what it's put in.
Now, the next thing we're going to be looking at is examples of how your program could look if you structure it in a certain way. So I'm going to go through two examples with you now very quickly. I've used a print statement just to create a little menu here. So welcome to bingo. Select an option number 1 and number 2. So if we select a number 1 and press enter, there are, it starts generating numbers for me. And every time I press enter, it's just generating a new number. So this now is my while loop happening. Now, how do we stop this? Well, if we enter B for bingo, now I've used, notice now I'm putting a lowercase b in, but in my program, I've got it using an upper option, so it'll automatically convert anything to upper. So what it's done now, because this is the basic one, it said, bingo, lovely, these are the numbers called, and it just shows the list of numbers that have been called so far. Now notice they're not in a sorted list or anything like that, they're unsorted, but this obviously is sufficient for the basic part of the program. We've got another option then, do you want to resume, yes or no? If we press yes, great, it keeps on going. If we press bingo again, and you can see there now it's come up and shown me now the additional numbers that have been put on. If we put no here to cancel the program, what it does is it stops that game and then loops back to the main menu. Okay, so that is the basic example. I'm going to show you now a more complex example, one where you have to enter the numbers that have been called. So this is the more complex version of the game. It starts off in exactly the same way. So I've still got this menu. If I just show you with this menu, if I were to put, say, number 6 in, it comes up there, no option selected. Or if I just press enter, no option selected. So this is just a while loop, which is going around as a while true loop until we either press 2, which will quit or exit the program, or number 1, which allows us to play bingo. So if we go to number 1, this does exactly the same. Every time I press enter, it's coming up with a new number, and if we press B for bingo, now then, this is the difference. This time it says please enter a number from the bingo card or press enter to resume. So if we enter a number, so we'll put 88 in, so you can see 88's been there. When we press 88, it says number okay, please enter another number. Okay, 76, 10, 3, 2, great. Now then, what happens if we enter a number that hasn't been called? We'll put 90 in. Number not found, false call. Okay, so this is the sort of elif or else maybe. And if we then look at that, we've got an option just breaking out of the loop there. Do you want to resume? Yes or no? Yeah, let's resume. So we keep on going. And if we press B for bingo again, there you are. So we'll put 47 in, so we can see 47 has been called. And there you are. If we want to resume, if we just press enter, resume play, yes, bam. Or if we press B again, resume play, no, and it quits. Okay, so this version of the program, the mechanics of it are exactly the same. The only difference is the way it checks. Now, we've done check-in in lists in the previous lesson, so if you can't remember, please have a look at it, because I've gone through it in a little bit of detail there, so you can see how to check if a number is in a list, or even if a piece of text is in a list. Okay, so best of luck. If there's anything you need, please let me know, and I will be on the end of an email.